Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. We are so excited to tell you guys about our group today. So we have something going on today that's sort of it's more like a podcast than it is just a regular presentation. We're going to have lots of chit chat, back and forth, stories. We're going to talk about creative writing today and how important it is to write your stories out and just the wisdom that comes from our older adults and that population in the community. And just we have some wonderful people joining in today. Um, just to let you guys know, nobody's started out a professional. We're all in this together. We've got some great stories to share, some great conversation. So, without further ado, we have David is on the right side of my screen. We have Miss Christina in the middle of the screen, and then we have Mary on the end on my left. So, David, Mary, and Christina are all here today just to talk about creative writing and inspire anybody who's here to write your stories down, write your thoughts down, get that stuff documented, and let's speak about it. We want to talk about things. We want to know your guys' wisdom. We want to know what you've been through. We want to hear these stories and pass them down not only to our children, but our grandchildren. And I'm just so delighted, if you can't tell, to host this meeting. Now, before we start, I'm going to introduce everybody just so you know a little bit of their background. So, Mary, on the left there, spent 50 years in Zambia and Zimbabwe, raising a family, training teachers for the post-independence expansion of education, and working for democracy and human rights. She's now trying to understand why all the idealism and goodwill for making a better world has been replaced by hatred and greed. So we'll welcome Miss Mary and then moving on to Miss Christina. Christina worked and traveled in Europe, Africa, and the Middle East, and North America, all in the 1970s. She was looking for a deep understanding of herself and humanity in general, and now she continues her learning with inner exploration. So, welcome, Christina. Thank you so much. And Mr. David, who joins us every month. We're so lucky that we get David joining us, and he has led such an interesting life in various countries, which we do discuss. He joins us once a month to talk about his travel experiences. He's traveled widely, excuse me, but he has always sought out to draw meaning in and wisdom from those experiences. So now he's trying to pass on those lessons that he's learned, and we're lucky enough to be able to listen to these three today. Now, with that, I just want to quickly say that anybody who's taking part in this, we know it's a webinar. We know that you can't, talk and we can't see you, but it's very important that we get your participation in this. Everybody has a story. We want to hear it. So if you guys feel comfortable out there, you want to type in the chat box. We want to hear your thoughts. We want to hear your stories. We want to bring you into the conversation as much as possible. So we want to encourage everybody to think about and write about their stories and their lives. And if you can't do that all within this hour, just do it outside of this time. And then next time, this is a monthly series. So next month, maybe we can start this session with some of your stories and your experiences. So I will type my email in the chat box. And for anybody watching the video that can't see the chat box, my email is Sarah, Sarah, and then the letter C at unisonalberta.com. So feel free if you've got a story that you want to write and share. We can talk about it at our next session, and we can do it anonymously or we can give you the credit for it. So without further ado, let's all give a big virtual clap and welcome to Mary, Christina, and David. Hi. Thank you all so much for coming.
Well, that's a very flattering introduction, and I hope we can live up to that. We're sat here in my living room in Sunnyside, actually, and these are two of my friends who we met through a writing group, and we found so much joy and satisfaction in writing that we wanted to share that and tell you you can find it too. You don't have to be brilliant at it, and everyone's got a story, as you said, Sarah. So we're trying to share our stories, say it's not so difficult, you can do it too. And let's go. I'll pass it to the others for a moment just to see if they would like to add a word or two before we start reading our first story. Mary?
Okay. What we're going to do is follow a little bit what we do in our writing group. We write our stories. We actually send them out ahead of time. Today, David's going to read his story, and then we're going to react to it. How we respond to his story. What we like about it, maybe some of the things we think aren't as great as they could be. And this is how we do it in our writing group, and we're just offering this as a way you might approach and attempt to write some of your own stories.
Christine?
Yes, about writing your own stories. I joined the writing group a year ago, and I was a little intimidated because there were several people who published books, and just about the only writing that I've done since high school has been in my journal, which isn't for public consumption. So it's been very empowering to just kind of dive in and get the feedback and realize, oh, you don't have to be a published author. You don't have to have even any creative writing courses under your belt. You just start and you naturally get better with the feedback, and also just with your own exploration in the expression. So yeah, you don't have to be all educated about writing.
I love that because I think I say all the time that words have weight and they carry long after we say them. And I just think that everybody has the ability to talk about, like you said, it's innate, how they feel. You don't have to be a published author. I love that you brought that up, Christina. Thank you.
But make one other point about, we've been using the word creative in relation to our writing. Some people think of creative writing as purely fiction, and this is not what we're talking about here. We're talking about writing memoir, and memoir is sometimes described as creative nonfiction. So that's what we're talking about, creative in terms of your craft, your skill in putting it together, making it something that is attractive for other people to read, and also sometimes having to amplify a little bit of what you remember about what happened.
Before we continue, you guys, I'm so sorry. I just have a quick question. Rhonda typed in and asked, is this writing group held by Unison? So I know it's not. So David, I'll let you, Mary and Christina, the writing group that you guys are in.
The writing group we're in was sponsored by an organization called, the acronym is CALL, but it's Calgary Association of Lifelong Learners. And it's just a charity. It's listed as a charity, but it's a not-for-profit group of people who are 55 plus who got together and said, we don't want to, we're approaching retirement, or we are retired, and we've got to keep our minds active, keep a full life as long as possible. So they have all sorts of organizations, from watercolor painting to this heavy discussion on philosophy, the whole gambit. There's something for everyone in it. So it's an interesting organization, but you can find it, just Google CALL and you'll get there. I hope that answers the question there.
Thank you, David. I think that was good. And again, if anybody has any questions after this presentation is over, after this panelist discussion, feel free to reach out to me. I did put my email in the chat box, so you guys can go ahead and email me at any time. Well, not in the middle of the night because I'm sleeping, but.
Okay, we thought that we would start with a piece that I wrote. And I chose it because it is not a big adventure. It's not something that is unique to me. I wanted to illustrate that you can write about any small thing. You don't have to have done exceptional things in order to write and to have a story. And this story was called Family Gatherings. And it just came out of my experiences, my own experiences with my family. And I'm sure you all have a very similar thing. Let us change it up this year and rent a hall, have live music. Absolutely not. It's not a party. It's a ritual, a tradition. That's how the discussion went. The traditionalists won, so Father Christmas will greet everyone at the front gate with mulled wine and a ho, ho, ho once again this year. 4 generations will mill about eating canopies and drinking exotic cocktails, the specialty of a grandson and partner, who are the only dinks left in the family. Double income, no kids is what DINK stands for.
Thank you.
Well, maybe the great-grandchildren won't be in on the cocktails, but there will be sticky fingerprints from canopies everywhere. Then slowly the cocktails will work their magic and the conversation will become more animated with a notable increase in volume. A peep into the dining room will reveal a beautifully laid table set for 21. In the last few years, I've been given a pass on preparation duties, so it is revealed to me as a surprise. Whose artistic endeavor was it this year? I imagine the days of fretting that someone has had before getting it just right. Tantalizing smells emanate from the kitchen. What will be the main course this year? This is an area where innovation is allowed. Over the last few years, we've had beef Wellington, roast lamb, salmon Wellington, as well as the traditional turkey. Although the turkey's been served in many forms, from roasted through an unfortunate coating of some gelatinous white sauce, the memory of which has passed into family folklore, to a deep-fried version that nearly set the garage on fire, all fondly recounted each year. Attention gradually shifts to the kitchen. The stomachs start to gurgle with inquiries of, isn't it ready yet? How much longer do you think? Finally, the call comes, a tub. Everyone immediately regrets how many canopies they've eaten, fearing that it will take the edge off the enjoyment of the main course, which promptly arrives with great fanfare, clapping and congratulations to the cooks. Then toasts are drunk. The mood, for a moment, becomes somber as we toast to those no longer with us and exchange our memories. Then, this year, it will lighten as we toast 2 new arrivals to the family, 2 great-grandchildren. There are no new partners to welcome this time, but the latest inductee will no doubt recount how she was terrified and intimidated at her first family gathering. I sympathize, for I must admit they're a formidable group, quick-witted, reading each other's minds, always ready to pull each other's leg. Then I will propose a final toast. If there are no new arrivals next year, may there be no less. One tradition has been missing the last 2 years. That is the flaming plum pudding. It was my wife's specialty that she had made for as long as I can remember. Its absence still a painful reminder. Perhaps I'll attempt it this year to fill the gap, remind us all that the cycle of life goes on and the wounds heal. Now we're all starting to feel drowsy and telling ourselves that we should not have eaten so much. It's time for speeches. As patriarch of the family, I will go first and try to express my gratitude to them all for their love and support over the year. Not just me, but to others, to each other. If I can keep my emotions under control, I'll offer a few words of wisdom. All my 4 children and their 3 spouses will have a few impromptu words to say, for none of them are shrinking violets. That half hour will be a bit of an emotional love-in, where people express feelings that will not be spoken of again until next year. I sit back, observe, and reflect. The anatomy of family relationships is complex and subtle. I understand how it works. As custodian of many confidences that I keep as a sacred trust, I know where the tensions lie and, when possible, offer gentle advice. At gatherings like this, there are delicate areas on which we tread lightly. Everyone seems to understand this fragile geography of emotions and never oversteps the boundaries. In the mellow afterglow of the occasion, I recall the Christmas of my childhood. Such a different world, now fast fading into the mists of time. The main meal was at midday. Special with a chicken which my father carved ceremoniously. It was just my parents, my sister, and me. Entertaining started around 4 p.m. when the 3 maiden aunts arrived, all a twitter. They seemed to be very old to me. Their dresses were old-fashioned, even to my young eyes. There was the smell of age about them. Maybe it was the smell of the mothballs with which their Christmas clothes had been stored all year. I remember my father plying them with glasses of sherry and then calling him a naughty man who was trying to get them tipsy. Then others arrived. As the evening progressed, sausage rolls, mince pies, and tidbits were served, culminating in the Christmas cake. This was a specialty of my mother, a hearty fruit cake soaked in brandy and covered with white icing. It always had Merry Christmas across the top, picked out in little silver balls. At about 7 p.m., when everyone was well lubricated, my mother would sit at the piano. There followed a repertoire of traditional songs. Everyone knew them and sang along. Those songs are still in my head today. Most of the words. The bawdier musical songs were never played. I hear my mother singing Autumn Leaves right now. Did I understand what was going on? Not at all, for I was far too young. However, I did understand that it was a tradition and a ritual. Looking back now, I think that it was honoring and acknowledging the older ones who would soon pass on. Also reminding the next generation of the torch that they carried. As for the younger ones, they were being told about the cycle of life and the value of family love and bonding, in spite of all the shortcomings of being human. My wife and I at Christmas 1987 were honored to be invited into a family Christmas gathering in the village of Molège near Saint-Rémy in the Provençal area of France. This was quite different to any Christmas family gatherings that we had known. Our hosts were a local farmer and his wife, who was the village doctor. The party consisted of their 2 children, the wife's parents, and us. Christmas in southern France was very different from Canada. It was steeped in religious tradition. Commercial exploitation before Christmas Day was considered bad form. Christmas cards were sent out after Christmas Day. We found the whole season fascinating, but that's a different story. We arrived at their house about 10 p.m. on Christmas Eve. The elaborate nativity scene that we found in every home in southern France was there, created using small figurines of both religious and local characters called santons. These were family heirlooms being passed on from generation to generation. Each family seemed to know which ancestors had added which character. The ones that represented some local person of the time. A sort of family history being passed down the generations. There was a Christmas tree, but what struck us was that there were no presents under it. This particular family followed an older tradition that gave their children presents on the 4th of January, the day that the wise men delivered their presents to the infant Jesus, the Feast of Epiphany in the Catholic religion. The table was laid like a work of art, with 13 plates piled with different fruits, nuts, and one with nougat. There was significance to every one, as was the number of place settings, which was one more than the people present. We would sit at this table when we returned from midnight mass at the village church. They spoke disparagingly of some places like Saint-Rémy de Provence and Les Baux-en-Provence and Saint-Marie-de-la-Mer, having allowed their midnight masses to become tourist attractions. Outsiders were not welcome in their village. That made us a bit nervous because, as they described it, it was a family gathering of the village. I'll not attempt to describe it here, for it would take far too long, but I remember every detail to this day. There were live sheep, and the shepherd sat right in front of us in his work clothes that really stank of sheep grease. Half the service was in Provençal rather than French, but that did not matter to us. The service ended about 1:30 a.m., and the whole village stood around chatting for a while. Now we understood what they meant by a family gathering of the village. Back at the house, we sat to the table after having added the Christ child santon to the crèche, then drank wine and ate the 13 desserts, while the significance of each was explained to us. I think that we finally went to bed about 3 a.m., feeling that we'd been let into a secret world of great significance to the people of the south of France. All these memories will go through my head as I contemplate our family gathering this year. Every culture in the world has its big family gatherings once a year, sometimes religion-based, sometimes not. What is the common thread? To mark the great river of life, pass on the memories of those who went before us, teach their traditions to the upcoming generations, but most of all, to assert the value of tolerance, mutual respect, and brotherly love that are essential to the functioning of a family, be it your family or the family of men.
Thank you, David. That was great. And while you were reading that story, we had a question in the chat box, so I just wanted to field this question quickly. So somebody asked, will this entire series consist of one story being read each time, or how do we envision this going?
Well, this is the start, so we're trying to be flexible, and we will remember that we want participation from the audience. So I would see us, as Sarah said at the beginning, if you are inspired to write something about your life, just a story, and send it in to Sarah. She will pass it on to us and we will read it. And we will maybe, if you want us to, we'll comment on it on the next program. We would then anticipate one of us reading one of our stories. Each person has their own take on this. And we want to illustrate how it's a little different for everyone who writes. So please participate. Please write something. Please send it in. But don't feel intimidated if you don't. And we're going to be flexible and alter our format to suit your response.
I think that's important too, David, that you mentioned, like, don't be intimidated. Like, write something, send it to me so that we can read it, so that we can give credit where credit is due. And if you want to anonymously, give your stories, I won't say who it came from. Absolutely, confidentiality will be maintained if you don't want your name it's spoken in these presentations, but I do think it's important that, yeah, I mean, we can read one of your own stories every month, but then it is nice to say, oh, so and so wrote in and gave us a story that we can read. And I think all feedback is very constructive. And I think that's important because I know, we talked about how none of us are published authors and, everybody started, at scratch. But David, that sounded like it was a novel to me. Like the way that it was worded and it was spoken, it sounded like a novel to me, and I really enjoyed it. I felt I think I'm better for hearing it, to be honest. But I don't want to take up too much with my. I can talk all day. We do have a couple other chats in the Q&A, so somebody wrote in and said, "May I know what is the difference between writing and creative writing?"
Who would, I'll let one of you take that question.
Well, all writing is creative in one way or another, I think, even non-fiction writing. If you write history or something like that, it's still creative.
Which
So,
Mary does.
right? History. Yes, I have done some history writing. Then there's total fiction, which is completely creative. You create the scene, you create the characters, you create the plot, and you invent basically something. And then you've got memoir writing, which is what we do. And we're writing our memories about our lives. People say it's creative. It's creative because of the way we put it together, the way we phrase our thoughts, the way we phrase our memories. And then it's also creative in the sense that we don't remember everything perfectly. So you can't say it's a complete representation of fact. But sometimes we have to imagine what the conversation was. For example, in David's story, he starts out with some dialogue, and I'm sure those aren't the exact words that were said. It's how he remembered them and the essence of what was said. So in that way, it's also creative, even when you're writing about something that actually happened.
Yeah, you're paraphrasing.
You're paraphrasing, you might be embellishing. But you're giving the gist of what was said and how you remember it and how you responded to it. So
Yes.
other people may have remembered it differently. So in that sense, I think we can say really any writing has to have some element of creativity, and then there's gradations of it, and memoir somewhere in the middle.
I love that.
Even the way you express some of the phrases, the fragile geography of emotions.
Yes, I like that
That
too.
is so beautiful and evocative of how it is in families. There are some fragile geographies, but I never would have put that together.
The other phrase that I thought of there was, and it was a metaphor, and that's also a metaphor. The anatomy of family relationships, and the choice of words. It's very creative.
Absolutely. I do just want to, Rupa also wrote in the Q&A and she asked, within how many days do we have to submit? So correct me if I'm wrong, gang, but this will be a monthly series. So essentially from this one, she has a month to write and submit it to me. Or
Yeah.
when would you guys like it before our next session?
Well, a couple of days at least, I think, just to give us time to read it and think about it, uh, because we're not going to come in cold when the webcast starts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. You need a couple of days. So
It would also give us an idea of how many have written. You know,
Yes.
it'd be one thing if one person writes, it's another thing if 10 people write. 10 people are welcome, and we would have to respond appropriately.
Yeah.
absolutely. And so she just says thank you. That so hopefully next month we have a reading from a story from Rupa. That'll be great.
um, perhaps you should comment on what I read now. Do you want to go first, Christine?
Well, I'm echoing how beautifully put together and flowing it is. And there was a piece that really touched me, the plum pudding that is missing. And I actually wondered if, because I know you wrote it in November of last year, did you give it a try in December?
Yes, I did. It didn't quite come up to snuff, but it was good enough. And
It
of
was
course,
edible.
it was edible, and we poured the brandy over and lit it and carried it in flaming, you know. So whether the pudding was up to snuff or not was almost irrelevant compared with the drama of
Tradition that was kept alive.
the tradition, yes. So I fear I'm stuck with doing it every year. But I will certainly do a better job this year.
Sure that the people listening or watching will agree that David's a good writer. And I think we all enjoyed his story, his memory that he's written up. But the question then is, what makes it good? What makes it a piece that we want to read or listen to? And I have several things I'd like to mention. I'm sure Christina has some too. Let me start, first of all, with a couple of things. First is the introduction. It's present tense. Present tense brings us into the situation immediately. So that I thought was helped make it a good story. Another thing right from the introduction is the dialogue. Dialogue also brings us right into the situation immediately. And the dialogue that David remembered or put together was very engaging. So immediately we're asking, who are these people? What are they talking about? And then he immediately goes on, and it's clear we're talking about a family Christmas gathering. So I think right from the introduction, we've got some aspects of his writing that grip us and make it an interesting story. But over to you, Christina.
There's a way that you bring the atmosphere of what's happening in the house so vividly alive with the moment the aromas, the impatience, is it ready yet? You know, there's so many details that just make me almost feel like I'm there. And I'm also hearkening back to this, the fragile geography of the emotions of the family. You pointed to something that I think most of us would recognize as being there. However, in my family, it's like we kind of all know about it, but we don't ever talk about it. It's all just kind of unconscious of
Well, what are you referring to there?
the fragile
Oh,
geography,
okay.
those places that you don't go. To actually have you point to, there are places we don't go. I thought that was provoked a lot of thought in me.
I think what's interesting, well, I agree with Christina. The descriptions of the home, of the events, of the not so much of the people, that's implied. The detail, the concrete detail, I think brings it alive as well. The sticky fingerprints around, and there were a few other ones I'm trying to think of. But this is combined in the story with a very philosophical element, which is typical of David's writing. As we've got to know his writing, he's a philosopher as well as a storyteller. And so having put us into his story, he then reflects on what was the meaning of it all. How did it all, how did he respond to it? And he doesn't tell us he does tell us some about how others responded to it as well. So I think that combination of storytelling, giving detail, and then reflecting also makes it very intellectually interesting for us.
Absolutely. And I just want to, Rupa again, just typed in the question in the Q&A and asked, can we choose any topic that we want to write about? And if yes, could you suggest something, the three of you, that you would like to hear about or read, or what you find maybe for writers that are beginning, what's like a good topic that would be relevant to beginning writers?
My reaction to that would be simple. But we've discovered in our group that our topics start to become more and more personal and deeper. And I wouldn't suggest that you go there. Take a very simple subject, like a summer holiday, I remember, that stands out in my mind because over the years it's never faded. Something even simpler. What my daily routine. Maybe that's very simple to get a story about your daily routine, but a lot more difficult to start to weave meaning into your daily routine and how it supports you or it supports your feeling. So you can take the simplest thing on your daily routine and it can become quite a deep and interesting story for people. So I'd say start simple. How about you guys? What do you think?
The word came to me, my favorite, and then put in my favorite meal, my favorite book, my favorite song, my favorite holiday, just whatever brings you joy, and start to write about that.
Mm-hmm. Or describing a person, member of your family, a friend, could also be something, but that might also take you deeper. If you get there, you don't have to go to that deeper place, even if the topic has a deeper philosophical possibility. You don't have to go there. You can just write the description of an event or a person, things they did, interesting things they did, how they influenced you. It can be very straightforward. But I was thinking, if people want us to, we could make, by next week, we could give a little list of possible topics and you could send them out if that's what people want.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm absolutely able to do that. So, whoever would like a list of topics that these three come up with, next week, just email me. So again, my email is in the chat box, sarahc@unisonalberta.com. And I'm happy to send those out if you're requesting them. I won't send them to everybody who's registered. I'll only send them if someone requests. So, please reach out to me and let me know if you'd like to receive that. But if you three are good to, put that together and send it to me, I'm happy to send it out. Did I stop? Did I
Yes,
freeze?
And
I
you've
knew
done
it.
it again.
I knew it. I felt it. Oh, my connection's unstable. If you can hear me and I cut out, I'm so sorry.
we'll just keep going.
Okay, thank you guys. Okay. Anyways, I was saying, yes, thank you all so much for being able to write those. Oh,
I wanted to say about depth is that I don't think, well, you don't have to go in. However, you don't necessarily have to immediately back out. You can just do a little scoop. Because what I've noticed about my writing is that I'm starting to take deeper scoops. I was inspired by Fran's writing last week. It's like, oh my God, I could be a little more courageous. So, so I think depth is as much as you want, and you don't have to have any, but don't eliminate some.
Perhaps it's my personality, but I find if a story doesn't have any depth and it's just this happened, that happened, and so on, I lose interest very quickly. But you've got to hook on to something which has relevance to the reader that they will react to. So you've got to engage the reader's emotions, in my estimation, or else it's just boring.
Well, it depends who you're writing for.
Well,
And if you're just starting to write and you're writing to develop a skill, then it's one thing. But if you're trying to pass on some wisdom or some understanding about your life to the next generation, then you probably do have to go into that deeper meaning aspect.
I just quickly want to take a moment, if I'm not frozen again, to say so sorry, and also say that Marilyn wrote in the Q&A and just said, thank you so much for this. This is really wonderful. So, yes, thank you guys so much, and just keep doing what you're doing. We're all listening.
I wanted to come back to a point about David's piece. The structure was interesting to me. He draws us into a specific family event and we get all engaged with that. And then he gets a little bit philosophical and he starts reflecting on something similar a generation ago, or maybe it's 2 generations ago when he was young, and his childhood. And we see how it was a little bit different, although he doesn't specifically compare. Then I thought he could have ended there and just brought in his conclusion. But he went on to describe another Christmas he experienced, which was very different in a different culture. And that was also extremely interesting and very creatively described, I think. I wondered what other people felt, whether that was really part of a different story, or it was part of the same story. And then he has his conclusion, which reflects on the meaning of traditions and family, and what meaning you make out of bringing a family together and remembering traditions. So it was a very clear structure, and that's something we have to remember when we're writing, not to jump all over the place. It flows in a certain way, and it certainly did.
Yeah, I was trying to juxtapose a totally different outlook on the Christmas celebration, versus ours, so that I could sort of generalize the universality of the tradition across different cultures. The other thing that I always try to do is to try to end up linking right back to the first paragraph somehow. So I started off with the gathering and the family, and in the end I came back to the family, the traditions, and the family of man, to say that we're all the same, really. That's what I was trying
You
to
come
do.
back to the original, but expand it a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I liked it. I mean, I thought you went really good. The only thing is you didn't have much of a. I thought you could have added a sentence or two when you moved from your own family to the experience in France. I thought it was a little bit of a abrupt process. Yeah.
Yes, that's true. I perhaps should do that. When we write in our group, we target somewhere around 1,500 words. And I always get a little nervous that I'm getting too many words in there. If there wasn't that limitation, I would probably could have expanded it a bit more, but
yeah, right, exactly.
So then could we say for these online sessions, because unfortunately we only have an hour together once a month, should we also give that kind of limit to people watching that want to write a story and send it in to us? Should we limit that word count similar that you guys think?
1,500 is a good number. What do you think?
Yeah. I was thinking we might even make it shorter, because if we have more than one,
Yeah.
I mean, we have to read it out.
Well, yeah, and then so in that case, I think that if there's more than one cent, maybe like we could, I mean, I hate to, you don't want to cut anybody's words out, right? Or kind of, like I said, paraphrase, right? But yeah, so I mean, let's just play it by ear, I guess, and just see how many we get sent each month. One, none, five, six, and we'll just kind of play it by ear. Maybe we can just pick one that we want to read or pick two that we want to read. And yeah, but I'm getting
But
ahead of myself.
1,500 is a good target.
And is that
Yeah, it is.
was
It's enough to say something reasonable and
was that this story, David? Was this story that you read 1,500 words roughly? Because if so, that took about 25 minutes or so, which I felt was I listening in just thought maybe the 30 minutes, first 30 minutes is the story, last 30 minutes is us chatting about it and giving feedback.
Well, it was 1,677.
Okay. Yeah, you were close. But what do you guys feel about that? Like we read a story the first 30 minutes, and then the last half is kind of the, feedback and discussion about it. How do you guys feel about that? Do you
Well,
see something different?
well, I saw it. If we get stories in from the listeners, I'd like to cover them first,
Mm-hmm.
and then read one of our stories, because I think there will be something to learn from ours. We've done it longer and we're perhaps more experienced than most listeners. So we do need one of our stories and discussion of it, plus the listeners' stories. So
Absolutely.
that will fill an hour easily.
yeah.
I also want to say that it's not to aim for 1,500 words, because I know one of my submissions was only 800 words, but it only took 800 words to say what I needed to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not to be that long.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's an upper limit.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, about between 800 and 1500-ish. So yeah, Kathy typed in and said, I enjoyed David's use of present, reflection, and comparison. And Rhonda typed in and said, we need a longer session. So this is good. Listen, you never want to go too long. It's like series, on television, those series that go like 10, 11 years, it's just too much. You want to end high.
No, I think it would be too much for us.
But yeah, so yeah, I mean you guys, like I said, right? I'm just a host and I keep interjecting and it's I quite rude of me, but yeah, I'm just thinking for like the structure of the presentation, I want you guys and our listeners and watchers to get the most out of this hour that they possibly can and to keep coming back every month. I just want to see it grow.
Yeah. So we have a pile of stories between us. And I was just wondering whether we've got 10 minutes left. Is there time for you to read your story in the 10 minutes? We won't discuss it, but then people can reflect on it and feedback. Or will that, you'd rather not? Okay.
I also don't want to rush anybody's the stories and the feedback because it's been 52 minutes that we've gone live for, and in 52 minutes we're still chatting about David's, story and feedback and people typing in. So I think that only giving 8, 9 minutes to Christine is doing her a disservice. So
Yeah.
I would agree.
Right, yeah, I had in mind that we would discuss it next time, but then people have forgotten. Yeah, it won't be fresh.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right, yes.
Yeah. I
Um,
wonder, are there any people watching who have comments on David's story?
That's great. Yeah. Does anybody want to comment in the Q&A or in the chat box about David's story and kind of maybe what you felt when you heard it? And I will say I'm no professional. Yeah, when he was reading that story, I I felt like I was there. I could visualize it. I really felt like a part of it. I loved the words. And I think it's funny, Mary, that you mentioned the abrupt the kind of shift from the first Christmas story to the second one in France because I thought the same thing and I felt, and David, I'm sorry, I don't this is no, I'm not trying
Oh,
to but
no.
I felt more connected to the first story than the second. And I wasn't sure if that was just that change in what happened. I felt like I said, more connected to the first Christmas story than that one in France. And I don't know why I felt that way, but
I know why,
why?
because the second one was more of a straight description. And it didn't transmit any personal or emotional involvement.
You're right. You're
That's
right.
very, yeah.
That's why. And yeah, I wrote it like I can remember being conscious of that when I wrote it, but I was getting worried about the number of words. So it would have really justified a separate story on its own. And I could have, then the emotion would have come across.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right, David. That's right. I felt so emotionally tied to that first story and the pudding and the family. And I didn't feel that with the second half of the story. You're absolutely right. Such a good
And
observation.
Which is I think the point is don't try and put too much
Absolutely.
into one story, but
yeah.
And
Yeah.
that is what we do in the group. If we have a big story and we can't do it in 1,500 words, we do a part one, and then the next time we've done part two, so
Yeah.
that the story gets the full attention that it needs.
And Rhonda typed in and said, I like the shifts in mood in David's story. I like the shifts in mood from reflective to somber to a bit of humor. I really like the structure. So that's what Rhonda said, David, about your story.
Oh, good.
Yeah, that's an interesting comment, and I think it's valid. Very valid. And that keeps up an interest when you shift like that as well.
There's a lot to writing that you don't realize until you get into this, isn't there?
Yeah.
Just in mood and the present tense for immediacy and so on.
So I think I don't know if you three have planned this yet, what story might be for next month, but I wondered if we could give a little sneak peek into the topic of the story of next month. And this is, of course, like you said, David, because we're going to hopefully have writers that are listening, sending in their stories. But if you guys always pick one, maybe it gives us a little bit like a sneak peek to what we can look forward to next time.
Okay, well, we're certainly over to Christine. Christine, it's going to be her story next time, and she can tell us in a minute or so why she chose that story and why she felt that she would like to bring it out.
I titled it The Most Amazing Thing That I've Done. However, then I go on to write about something that's actually quite mundane, but because of who I am, it is amazing that I did it. So that's what my story's about.
I love that. It's very individual. And you know what? Just because it's amazing to you doesn't mean it won't be amazing to anybody else, you know? So I love that. Very individual, person-centered, if you will.
Yeah, that's going to be very person-centered. Of course, I know Christina much better than most of the listeners here. So I can see why just doing what most people think is quite a mundane thing was a huge challenge and achievement for Christina. And that's what she brings across in her story. And I think that's a lesson for people who are wanting to start writing. It may seem mundane to you, but if you look at it from the outside, it may be a really interesting story to see how someone got their courage up and did something that they would never normally do.
Absolutely. And Rupa's just typing in the Q&A again here and just talking about some experiences that she's had, being at the hospital and noticing that there were so many homeless people and how they were suffering. And it just really stuck with her and she was very upset. So I think, I'm not going to say this, I'm going to defer to you guys. So what kind of advice would you give Rupa about maybe writing around this experience and hopefully sending that into us so we get to read it together next month?
Okay, if she wants to write about that, first of all, she'll have to describe the events. What happened? She went to the hospital and she was waiting there and she was looking at all these people around, maybe describe some of them. What did they look like? And then her reaction, how she responded to that, what kind of she feel sadness, sympathy, anger that this kind of situation occurs, and describe her emotions, and then probably sum it up by saying, has it influenced her approach to how she's going to live, or what she's going to do about it, or what's her active response as well as her emotional response.
Yeah, so the beginning, a
Or,
middle,
I mean,
and end.
that's how I would approach it. She might
And
approach it quite different.
well, but that's I think what we're here, why everybody's watching you guys and listening to you talk, because I mean, like I said, you guys have stated like we're not published authors, we're not, we're not this, we're not that, but it just you guys are very seasoned and it's so wonderful.
No, I'm not just hello. No, yet. Forgot to silence my phone.
Oh, I didn't even hear it. I'm
Good.
talking so much. But you know what? We're coming to an end anyways. It is 11 o'clock already. If you can believe it, the hour flew by. Miss Christina.
I have just one thing to say about the actual writing of it, because I'm a terrible typist and I have figured out how to not make that stop me from getting what they call the ugly first draft down. Your first draft needs to be ugly. You don't edit as you go along. But for me, it's been such a wonderful aha I had about I can just dictate onto my phone an email to myself. And it's all just there. And I can say, no, I didn't mean that. And it goes, I didn't mean. But I can edit later, but it then doesn't make me struggle with the typing.
Yeah, you get that thought out immediately. It's trigger words, kind of. Yeah. Well, you guys, thank you all so much for being here. Mary, Christina, and David, you guys were amazing. And David, you know that's just you. Every month I see you, you're amazing. And now you've brought in some amazing women to join us every month. So thank you guys so much for all your feedback, your stories, your conversation. I enjoyed it so much. I know everybody watching enjoyed it. We're gonna welcome you guys back next month. We'll find a date, or we'll find a date that works, and I'll get you in there. I am booking up my slots though, so we've got some great educational and just I think wonderful altogether presentations coming up tomorrow. If you want to join me live back on online here, we're going to have Vanita from our senior supports department, the manager of senior supports. She's going to come in and talk about stress management and how you can manage that. And that's sponsored by our Nadia's Hope Foundation. So come on back tomorrow if you can. And before I leave, I'm giving everybody hearts lately. So thank you all so much for being here. My speakers, my panelists, my the watchers on the other end, the questioners. Thank you all so much. We'll see you guys very soon. We're getting some hearts in the crowd there, team. Thank you all. See you guys
Bye.
soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.